Hi, John.
Hi, Pam.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. We had
Doing good?
yes, we had a candidate from Northwood that we were interviewing today over Zoom. And it got so bad she had to use the phone because her internet connection just would not keep up with
Ah,
even her talking. So we had to, so it's a problem elsewhere in Northwood.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's a candy dinner.
My wife picked up some oatmeal cookies at the bakery today, so that's what I had. I only ate half of it.
You gotta
Ate half of
work
it.
and it's
I have later.
About halfway through the meeting, you'll see a bowl of shepherd's pie magically
so
appear in my
delicious.
hands.
Ah, I can't blame you there. That's good. You need nutrition to work. My grandfather used to say, you can't work a team unless you.
Oh, mhm. There it is. Huh.
you turn it down low?
Cheese, crackers, salsa.
Matt, I didn't receive any citizens forum, did you?
I did not. Nope.
Oh, good, the cat left. Make room to take notes now. So where's Beth?
So we got everybody, I believe. If Timothy is Tim, it is. Terrific. Terrific. Okay, well, about one more minute and we'll get started. Can everybody hear me okay?
What?
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. So as chair of the Northwood Select Board, I'm calling the meeting to order due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04. We're authorized to meet electronically. We're providing public access via YouTube. The board is meeting via Zoom. If there's any issues in terms of being able to see the meeting, Susan, what number do you want them to call? Same as last time?
Yep, 607.
607-322-6232.
That's it.
The information on how to get onto YouTube is provided on the website. If for any reason the board has trouble using Zoom due to technical difficulties, the meeting will be adjourned. You might not see a formal vote, especially if we're having technical difficulties. So, oh, that's the other thing is we'll be doing everything by roll call vote so people can hear how people are voting. And we'll begin the roll call with attendance. Beth.
Here.
Tim.
Present here.
Matt.
Present.
Pam.
Present.
Thank you. And Hal Kreider. I'd like everybody to rise, face the nearest flag, and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the
The
republic
flag
of
of the United States of America.
God,
To the republic
indivisible,
which
liberty,
stands
and justice for all.
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do not believe there's any citizens forum letters this week. John or Matt, can either of you confirm that, please?
I have
Neither
one.
one of us has one.
Neither of you have. Okay, very good. Thank you. And also, we don't have the minutes from the meeting last week yet. So we'll be reviewing those when they get issued. So we're going to move right into the TA reports and items for board action.
Consent agenda for the one item.
Excuse me, I skipped right over the consent agenda. Did I not? Okay, sorry, Paul. This is your big chance. You want to read off the consent agenda?
So for the consent agenda, all I have for today is for accounts payable manifest dated for September 30th is batch number 15085, and it's for $423,294 even.
Okay, it's a big number, Paul. Do you want to tell them what the big ticket item is in there?
To be honest, Hal, I'm trying to
It's
remember,
the
and I don't
school.
exactly.
It's
Oh,
it's
it's
the
the school
school.
one. Okay.
School.
The school.
Hal
Remember the
knows,
wire-
Paul. He's
you
just trying to
understand
set
the
you
wire?
up. Look at him. Look at him.
I was trying to make him look good, and I guess I didn't work that so well. Sorry.
Wow.
Okay.
It's okay. You're gonna keep him on his toes, Paul. We're gonna keep you on your toes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I thought he had it in front of him there and could make him look good, but okay. Sorry, Paul.
No, it's okay.
You'll get a chance next week. Okay, so that's the consent agenda. And if anybody wants to take any items off the consent agenda, this is the chance to speak now. Given that there's only one item, I suppose that's not the case. So any discussion on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Tim, second by Matt. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Beth,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, and Hal, yes. Okay, it's been a long day. John, how about now? Are you interested in doing the TA reports and items for board action now?
Yes, now the school has their money, everybody can be at peace.
Everybody's happy. Okay.
Yes, I want to start with the memo I sent out regarding the community center. I will read it for those who have not seen it in the audience. The first rule has to do with clear and consistent posting. To make clear, the rules include A, the total number of people on each level shall be limited to 10. Safety masks are required of everyone all of the time in the building. 3, there are going to be supplies of masks and materials to disinfect areas. The town has engaged the cleaning service, the same one we use at Town Hall, to enhance cleaning. And E, that each community will need a plan for staff safety, meeting, exit, and entry, setup of rooms. The chairperson, or the one booking the room, who I'm going to call the convener, shall be responsible for seeing the provisions of this section are done. And everyone will need to fill out a Northwood health screening form as they enter the space, or bring one that they filled out that day, which will include a temperature check. One thing that I have added at the suggestion of one of the members of the public was the chair of the committee or the convener will be responsible to collect and securely retain the forms for 14 days, after which they need to be securely destroyed, shredded, or burned. The purpose for that is so that if there is someone who tests positive in that group, we'll know who was at the meeting, because they all would have filled out the form and they can be then notified. Secondly, only groups such as town committees, organized nonprofits, political parties will be allowed to use the hall. There will be no personal usage. So there won't be showers, there won't be birthday parties, there won't be, kids' parties there. Third, the locks will be changed. New keys will be issued only to the qualified groups. And 4, the town has included it in the cleaning cycle so that it will be cleaned. Although it would be good for the groups to make sure they leave things cleaner than they found them. So I would like that adopted by the board, and then we will put that over there. Tim has a question.
Okay, so questions first before we go to motions?
So each group is going to get a key, or like you'll have a key at the town hall, like Steve Bailey will get a key to hand out, or the VFW is going to get one?
Yeah, my plan, and is certainly subject to amendment, would be that the Republican Party would get a key, the Historical Society would get a key, the Recreation Department committee would get a key,
Okay, no?
Question on the sign up sheet. I guess you had said it was just a clipboard on the wall or calendar. Is that
It's a
gonna be-
calendar. I did discuss with Steve Bailey and one of the members of the public who uses it in a group on a regular basis. And they would prefer to keep the calendar for the time being rather than go to an electronic sign up format. So I didn't suggest a change to a electronic sign up program, but that was one thing that I did consider. But as I said, there were those who used the building who thought the calendar was working, and I think we give it a chance. And if it doesn't work, then we'll come back with an electronic calendar.
Can we request that the person signing up, if it's a group, that the booker put their full name on rather than initials or just Harry or Joe? Or if it's an organization, rather than just the organization, we're going to need the organization and the name of the person booking. Because if somebody's going to have these forms, we should be able to look back and say, this is the person that was responsible that night. They're supposed to have the forms.
Yes, I'll add that as number 5.
Other questions or points? Matt?
So I've got 2 questions. The first one is, as we're putting together the signage, especially on the exterior of the building, can we have contact information for it? So if Mr. Bailey is willing to still be the keeper of the community center, can we get contact information from Mr. Bailey on some of the signage out front? Because I think one of the things that we run into all the time is, people just posting on the Facebook page and stuff. How do I get access to the building? So I think that'd be really helpful, especially where the sign up calendar lives inside the locked building, right? My other question is, excuse me, should we think about putting a sunset on some of the more restrictive aspects of these rules so that we'd have to revisit it down the road and not forget around, especially pursuant to community use as opposed to organized, organizational use?
Explain what you mean by that, Matt.
Meaning if we said that, so item number 2, that provision would sunset in, March of 2021 unless readopted by the Board of Selectmen. So that way we don't forget that we put that rule into place post-COVID, and we sort of change the intended use of that building.
Can we say April 1, 2021, this will be reconsidered?
Yeah, that'd
Rather
be
than-
beautiful. Yeah.
It'd be better to say it's going to be reconsidered rather than have it lapse.
Incidentally, Betsy has also volunteered. She lives nearby to help out, especially when Steve is not available, as going to be the case for a while.
It's very community-minded. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll probably put both names and contact information on after I clear it with the 2 of them.
Yeah, Beth?
Great.
Beth?
Should we just have, I don't know, I hate to put their phone numbers out in a sign that's out for everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they can contact the town hall and then they can get the phone numbers that way.
Well, yeah, whereas this is being used over and over again by the same groups, and it's all town groups. Most of the town groups would know Steve Bailey and Betsy,
Maybe-
Coburn, so.
Maybe you can give them the numbers when you give them the keys.
Yeah. I'll talk to the 2 of them about it. I mean, my phone number is in the phone book, so, or the last time they published one.
You still have phone books? I gotta say, yeah, you got.
They don't have those anymore.
The one I've got has my number in it, but it is dated.
Okay, so I think there were some good suggestions. John, can you go down the list of the amendments to what you wrote so that everybody knows what we're going to be voting on?
Well, the signage in terms of context was just a suggestion in how we'll do the form. I'm not putting that in the guidelines.
Correct.
Sign up, a person will do their name and the organization, and that the consideration of only town organizations will be reconsidered April 1, 2021. I say by April 1, 2021. If everything is going well, you may want to reconsider it. But that way there's a new, any changes in the Board of Selectmen from town meeting will be involved in that. So that's why I picked April.
Is that going to be posted somewhere or like Steve or Betsy, or we're going to tell people like if they call
Yep.
and reserve it? Okay, that's awesome.
This will probably not be the laminated out front, but this will be in by the calendar.
And you talked to Steve the other day about when you did this?
Yes.
Yeah, we
I was
have
just
copy of it.
worried about the January 28th date on it.
Ah, you know what?
Do you have a meeting with Steve a long time ago? You weren't with
Good
us back in
catch.
January, but it's up to you.
Good catch. It was September 28th.
Okay.
Must have been a cold day that day.
Yeah.
Just the additional amendment that the convener is going to maintain the health forms and then destroy them after 14 days.
Yes, I did put that. Yeah, that was a change, correct.
Okay, any other points or edits to what John just listed off? Tim,
Is there gonna be a stack of, those health forms
Yes.
inside? Okay.
any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. So that sort of closes the info session. So now I'd like somebody to make a motion in terms of what they'd like to do on this issue.
I'd like to move to accept the rules for community center use as proposed or as amended.
As amended, do I have a second on that? Second by Tim. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt them as amended. Is there discussion on that?
Nope, thank you for all that, John. That was good. And
Do you
Steve,
want to
Mr.
add
Bailey.
the amendment of April on
It's
the
as
motion?
amended.
I'll email you the entire document as amended, Susan.
Right, but do you want to add the amendment to be reconsidered April 2021 in the motion? So you have it in there?
That was
Oh,
one of the amendments, was it not?
It was going to be
Right,
part of the
but do you want it-
document. It's going
Okay,
to
it's
be part of the
okay.
document, Susan.
Okay,
Okay, roll call vote. Oops, Tim's off, so we'll skip him. Matt. Oh, Tim's back.
Yes.
Tim? Matt?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes,
Beth?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Thank you, John. That was good.
The next item is that the MS1, which is the form we fill out with the state for total assessment, has been submitted. The documents that are missing are being worked to be produced. The Gulf Road District is the one where it's relatively new. They have a number of documents. They are working on them. They've got some of them in, and they'll be trying to get the rest of them in. The school has a little bit to do, the county has a little bit to do, but so does the state. So right now, we're in good shape as far as our target for having the tax rate set on time. Something could go wrong, but assuming the Gulf District continues the progress they've been making, that the county wraps things up in the next couple of weeks, that the state revenues get finalized, that there are some other factors, but we've taken care of what was on us as a town.
Yeah, I think what John's alluding to is originally we were concerned that we might not be able to get our assessments done until quote October, but it looks like that means the beginning of October, not the end of October. So looks like we're, like as John said, we've done what we need to do. So, and John is following up with the others. Any questions or comments on that? Yeah, go ahead, John.
Just to make people aware, if all other things were equal, when the assessment goes up, the rate comes down. Now, because of changes in appropriation and revenues or for other reasons, it may not happen. But in general, the fact that our total assessed value went up, especially on waterfront property,
Yeah.
it does not mean that the town is going to collect more total taxes. The rate will come down, so we collect the amount that was approved at town meeting, school meeting, county meeting, the village districts and the state, so that we don't raise more money by raising the assessment. We just more fairly apportion the tax out. Now, the rule of thumb is 30% of the people will see a higher tax bill, 30% a lower tax bill, and 30% will stay about the same. Well, a third, 33 and a third.
Yeah, that's only 90%. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just realized as I was going along, I wasn't gonna get, but
That's new
Yeah.
math.
yeah, new math, yeah. 1, 10, 11, 100, 101.
I hope that 10% that doesn't get.
So, so I just wanted to make people aware of that. Don't be surprised if you go on the line and you see the assessment has gone up. The assessment for the entire town went up, and some people, especially waterfront, are going to see a significant change. They will see their taxes go up.
Okay, what else, John?
Okay, next item I wanted to cover was a report on gopher expenditures. I did run it by Catherine. It looks like just about everything is going to be expended. There is one item that I do want to proceed with. We talked about the ADA requirement on our front doors at the town hall. That is an $11,000 expenditure. Catherine believes we can get that out of COVID money, provided the work is done by October 14th, and we've cut the check. So I'm working with the vendor, and assuming he guarantees that the work can be done in a timely fashion, I will proceed using COVID money to get that ADA requirement met. It also helps with COVID, because then with your elbow, you just hit the little blue button and the door is open. So that there is a valid reason. And in fact, she says in Ashland, they're doing it there as well under the COVID money. So we had been looking at very little of the COVID money being left over. This should fully expend it. We'll probably put in for more than we're allowed. And that way there, if they disallow an expense, we'll still get 101,000 from them for COVID money.
John, do you need an approval of the PO, or you're not ready on that yet?
I would like approval, not of the PO, but of signing the invoice, provided they can meet the deadline with, let me get the name of the company.
So what's the mechanism?
It's called a main entrance automation, low entry automatic opener unit, latch retraction, electrified panic exit, etc. And it's through Northeast Door Corporation. We did talk to another company that I have used in the past, and they're so busy they couldn't even come and look at it. So I don't think we have a lot of ability to go out and try to get a competitive quotes on this. This seems like a reasonable number. So I'd like to proceed with that with Northeast Door.
So what do you need from the board?
A motion to authorize me to proceed with Northeast Door to have the doors made handicapped accessible.
So moved.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. The motion is to authorize John to proceed under the understanding that the work's done before the 14th of October so that we can get COVID money for this work. I'll open it up for discussion. So let's go with Matt first and then Tim, please.
Can we just put a cap on that number?
$11,000.
Okay, Tim?
Does he come back for us to sign it? Do we authorize John to sign that? Is it over his, how much? I forget
I
what John,
think you're authorizing me to go over that number.
okay.
That'd be-
Over your spending limit
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So everybody's clear what we're voting on? And Tim, thank you for that clarification. That's really what I was trying to say, but I didn't say it so good or so well. Is there further discussion on doing this? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to have a roll call vote. Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes,
Beth,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, thank you, John. That's a good
Okay.
addition. That'll really help.
Okay, the next item I have to bring in is the Thunder cross-country team wants to have a facility use, and I am asking for authority to grant that. It's a more general question. Do you want to grant the Recreation Commission the ability to do this? There will be a second item I'll be bringing up in a minute on the, that involves the rec field facility use request. How do you want to handle this?
John, if we may, maybe we should take up the second item first, because if we grant the authority to the Rec Commission, then we don't need to act on the first part of this. You know, Matt and I traded a few emails regarding this. So I'm going to let Matt speak first and let him outline what he thinks is appropriate, given that we don't have a rec director, but we do have a rec committee.
So I think, you know, like these two items are good examples of things that would have been handled by the recreation director if we had one right now. I think where we're at is the Recreation Commission is a non-policy setting commission. It's advisory commission. So historically they haven't, you know, they've made recommendations for what we want the recreation director to then go off and do, taking on additional duties like, you know, approving expenditures or making permanent changes to facilities has never been something that commission really had under their purview. I think if we set some pretty clear limits on what we're talking about, then in the absence of a rec director, I think it would be helpful to have multiple people looking at these issues and keeping it off of our table. You know, so if we set, like, let's say a very low spending cap and the ability to approve things like facility use and minor changes to the infrastructure, then that should cover anything that needs to happen over the next couple of months.
Would you like, well, first off, Matt gave us some information. Does anybody have questions about what Matt said?
What's like the spending cap, Matt? What would they be spending? You know, what do you think? I mean,
So, I mean, right now, so a good example is, so we just bought some soccer balls and some field striping paint and stuff.
okay, so it's
and
recreation stuff, they're not like, okay.
the league coordinator made those purchases, and then John's been signing off on those in the absence of a rec director. That'll probably still happen that way because there's an employee in that position. It would be if we needed supplies. So let's say we decided that we were going to be able to safely do a program like Trunk or Treat, right? If we needed to buy $100 in supplies for that, knowing that money is going to be able to be expended, or that somebody's going to be able to get reimbursed without getting hung up in the system.
What do you think, 250? I mean, yeah, you have a
First-
number in mind?
I mean, under $500, 250 is probably more than reasonable.
Okay, Beth, how about you?
I think they should be able to spend, but maybe, I don't know if we should say like everyone on the commission, you know what I mean? Like how many people are on the commission?
So the thing, we would still we'd still have it be a commission vote to expend. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that way there's 5 people looking at it, frankly, instead of 1.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we didn't have like 5 people all buying
No,
like the candy or something and they
yeah,
weren't.
no, we don't want that to happen
do
either.
it, you know what I mean? Well, you know, like, oh, I'll buy it. And then someone else is
Yep.
at Walmart and they buy it too. So,
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, I actually don't know that we'll need to spend any money at all over the next several months. We're not doing a lot of programming. There's not a lot going on. But these two questions that are on the potential agenda tonight, those are the kind of things that, I think do make sense to let us on the rec commission handle, and, and using our discretion, that if it's going to be something like, do we run Trunk or Treat or not, then that needs to be sort of run up the flagpole and multiple inputs are gathered, et cetera.
Beth, I'm going to get to you in just a minute, but Matt mentioned that there are 2 items, as did John. So John, can you just mention for the public what the 2 items are so everybody knows what we're talking about, please?
Okay, the first item is the New Hampshire Thunder Youth Cross Country. It's been operating out of the upper field at Bailey Park. The program started with less than 10 kids, but has grown leaps and bounds. I asked them to, this is Matt, asked them to complete a facility use form. They are forwarding proof of insurance. We suspect they're covered by USA Track and Field. So that would be one item. The second one is a Co-Brown senior doing her senior project, name of Amelia Brackett. And what she would like to do, I think you can see in my camera, put up a little book kiosk that would be a library that people who wanted to leave books or pick up books could use at the rec field. And that would be a project. So she's asking for permission to put that up at the Northwood Rec Field. I think there's already one up at there's one
Transfer
listed here.
station.
Is that where it is? Well, the transfer station
At
is
the
a different.
entrance.
The entrance.
No, there's several around town. There's one across the street from me. There's one at the,
It's one at the
Yeah, but,
Congregational Church.
yeah. the
One at-
church.
Yeah, one on Main Street, a school street. and-
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess, would she be,
Okay,
whereabouts on the field? That way it's not gonna be.
I was
in the
gonna say,
way.
can you get with the rec commission or Chris, make sure it's not in any plowable areas or mowing hazards, or too close to the field, so the kid's gonna run into it, so just maybe the rec commission or Chris can get involved.
Well, I think if
that's
you
what we're
approve
talking
it, I'd have
about
a,
is,
Yeah.
we're talking about making the
Oh,
rec
okay.
commission responsible for doing all those types of things that you're talking about, Tim, as opposed to bringing it to the board, because they know better than we do anyway. And you're right, they'll know where people are likely to run and have problems. So
But they might not know where the plowing would be and where they'd be plowing, with the snow.
might
So
not, but then that's their responsibility to ask, in my mind.
Not everybody thinks about that.
no, they don't.
Yeah, well, and if
Now
you,
they will. Matt heard us.
so that's what's up for consideration. Tim, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I was gonna make a motion to, let the rec department, and put a cap at 250.
Okay, so let's, so you said for the rec commission, let's put something in there to, indicate what they can do. So like, Matt, help me out here a little bit.
So it would be to create and facilitate programming, make minor modifications to fields and facilities, and to allow for, facility use for outside entities and organizations,
and expend up to X
and expend up
dollars.
to $250.
Okay, so list it off again, please, so it's real clear.
So it would be, we'll start with the money, expend up to $250
Okay,
to make minor modifications to existing facilities, to make programmatic decisions, and to allow outside agencies to utilize town fields for programming.
With the proper paperwork and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
All right, I take my motion away.
well,
I'll
no,
take Matt's. No, I
Second
just,
that.
that's fine.
take that motion now if you'd like.
So moved by Matt. I'll second it. I don't care.
Okay, good. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, what we're voting on right now is the motion that Matt/Tim made to authorize the rec commission to make facilities use decisions and funding decisions. Is everybody clear?
Right,
Matt?
just make one clarification. This is in the absence of a recreation director.
Yes, I think that's actually a good point, because otherwise it would be going through a town employee. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so let's add that to let's add that clarification.
I'll amend my motion.
Okay, thank you. And we have the second from Tim. Okay, further discussion. Hearing none. Pam, how do you vote?
Yes,
Beth,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, I thought that was a good discussion, and I appreciate that we're, asking other folks to use their authority and thinking. I think that's just a generally good idea. So thank you for doing that. John, do you want to move on to the next items that?
Yes, but just as I leave this one, Matt, you'll take care of getting a hold of Karen Fisher and Amelia Brackett on those
Yes,
two
sir.
items.
I can
and
do that.
proceed.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Next item I have to do is the meeting hall capacity. I met with Ginger and Bob Young. There is room, the way that the tables are set up, so they all face to the front like a lecture hall. And that would include 3 people on the stage, 6 who could be at the front facing the tables. And so therefore, I would like an amendment to the prior limit that was placed on the meeting hall to allow up to 22 people, as long as they continue to wear masks and stay socially distant.
John, let's ask if there's questions first. Anybody have any questions? Beth?
So the tables are all moved and the chairs are all set, so it looks pretty obvious to fit 22. That's where they have to sit, right?
The chairs may not be totally in place because we're changing mics around and we've still got to run the mic wires, but yeah, it's pretty obvious where they're
Okay.
going to sit.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So Bob Young was happy with this, the spread out distance, and you said he
Yes.
was here at the meeting? Okay, nope.
Yeah. In fact, I have an email from him here. I reviewed tonight, so I did not feel I need to attend. He will watch on YouTube. You appeared to things well in hand after we move furniture around. If you want him to pre-review, he will, and we can email him before the meeting.
Okay, John, I have one question, if I may. I think you indicated everybody is facing forward. How would that work? Like if the select board were to meet there, would we be able to face each other?
Because you're a 5-member board and we set it up so you could have, for example, a 14-member board sitting facing front. If you leave the middle, there are 3 rows of tables, you leave the middle row of tables empty, you could turn to the other side of that table and you could make it work.
Okay. At this point, it's a hypothetical question, but I did want to understand how we would do that. Okay.
Yeah, the other way is you could run 4 in one row and then the chair being facing up. So it's a long row, 6 feet between each one, going the length of the hall basically. But I would think it would be easier to have 3 and then 2 at the other table, at the front table. But
But I think what you're
some options.
What you're pointing out is each group will need to work within the parameters that you and Bob have set. So as long as we do that, or as long as anybody using the room does that, we're basically setting it at this layout format and this many people. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, having said that, I really think the budget committee should look at trying to use the school in their late November, December meetings, because it's going to be tight in there, even with them, if they have, the library trustees show up and the police commission shows up and, all the different presenters and everything. It just can't be, I still think it's going to have trouble for the budget committee to be in that room with presentations from multiple people. I think the planning board can make it work. I think that the selectmen can clearly make it work. I think that it's going to be a challenge if the budget committee, we're expecting to use that as their all-day Saturday meeting space.
Okay, John, I think that's an excellent point, and I'm going to ask the board to keep that in mind when we talk about new business select board / school board joint meeting topics. So let's just keep that in mind for now. Now let's move back to the business at hand, which is the Great Hall. John is suggesting that the meeting parameters for using that hall are to 1, set the limit at 22 people, and 2, that people using it use it in the layout format that he and Bob Young generated. So is there
Mask?
questions? Pam?
So make sure you're including, they gotta wear mask and social distance.
Yeah, I think
the health paper work too?
the same. We're just changing the layout and the number. Everything else, John, unless I missed something, everything else stays the same. Is that correct?
Yeah, Pam is correct. Everyone has to wear masks. Everyone has to social distance. This layout was designed so that everybody could be 6 feet apart. That's how we got the maximum of 22.
And the health forms and all that filled out?
Yeah, the health forms are still
Yeah.
in, all the rest are in place. It's just changing the number. All you're doing is changing from 10 or 12, whatever the number was, to 22.
Okay, is that clear? Matt?
So I'm clear on what we're talking about here. This is more of an aside that I think we need to not forget that at some point, as we're preparing to move back into the hall for meetings, we should fire up the live stream system and figure out where we need to point that camera, and maybe even make sure that chairs understand where it's pointed in terms of getting the best viewing for the public. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Paul, you've been working with live stream in terms of making that work. And one of the cameras we've been having trouble with, maybe Paul, you want to comment on that for us about the live stream and the cameras?
Yeah, so I have been working with Linda and a few others on that in the hall there, and I have been working so that the cameras are angled at their proper locations, and the mics at one point they do work, and all can be run as well. There's only just two small issues that become a slight hassle when it comes to this. One of the cameras, the one that's closest to the door when you enter the hall, that one itself doesn't necessarily want to turn or do anything functional to the handle when you try and move it. And that's actually the one, Hal, that you had proposed that were to go to that small screen where if we were to upload our computers to. The only other issue that I saw was that someone would have to run the module itself to possibly zoom in the cameras to any other people in the room if they were commenting and they were possibly out of the screen camera zone. That's really the only two issues as of right now. Otherwise, everything was working fine.
Yeah, I think what Paul's alluding to, if anybody watched the more recent school board meetings, some of the folks are there, and then some of the folks are participating via Zoom, and they have the Zoom projected onto the wall, and when a person speaks, they change the size so that you see just the person that is speaking. And to do that, then Mr. Robert has to be there and handle all that technical stuff. So I think Paul's correct. We would have to think about how we would have to do that if we're going to have bimodal functionality there, I guess is what I'd call it. So let's see, where were we? Okay.
A vote to increase the allowed number to 22 with all the current rules in place.
Increase to 22 using the layout designated by you and Bob, which is the way the room is now set up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So no rearrangement of the tables per se then.
Yeah. There's some concern with the ones that are on the raised platform that we might move a little, but basically, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, okay. So does somebody want to make a motion to change the limit and also to set the layout?
So
moved.
moved.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, go ahead, Pam can have it. Don't matter.
Pam made the motion to set the limit at 22 and use the layout provided by John and or designated by John and Bob. Tim seconded. Is there discussion on this motion? Hearing none, then we're voting on setting the limit at 22 per the layout that exists now. Beth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes,
and Hal is yes. A big thank you to Bob on that. Really appreciate his expertise and input.
Ginger also helped. She
Yeah,
was
that's right.
there.
Ginger was there too. Yeah.
Input too.
yeah, Ginger.
Thank you, Ginger.
I supervised.
Well, somebody's
Yeah.
got that job.
Yep, Pam was there. Okay, the next item has to do with ballot clerks. I recommend the appointment of Danielle Clare and Teresa Cowdery. That comes from Marissa. We continue to need ballot clerks, and if more want to volunteer, but I'd like to have the board vote to appoint those, and I'll send out the forms for Adobe signature if you approve it.
John, sorry for interrupting, but did you not also mention Dana Hoofgraft to me?
She's sworn in already.
Oh, okay. So she-
John, can you repeat the second name, please?
Teresa Cowdery, Cowdrey. I may be pronouncing that wrong, and I apologize if I am, but Cowdrey, Teresa.
Thank you.
Any further questions regarding the people? I would just like to make the point, it's going to be a pretty hectic election. The more help we can get, the better.
Yes.
Tim had firsthand experience handing out the ballots, and he did not look real happy after about 5 hours. So
No, that's just how I am. No, it's all right, good. You know,
I was trying to make a pitch to get, people have shorter shifts, Tim.
I
but-
think before the next election, I'm gonna become a teacher and skip out the first 6 hours of the day, like
Whoa,
my
whoa.
top 2 people were.
I'll have you know that I'm going to pre-record my lecture that day.
Hold on a second. Hold on. No snide comment.
Well, I wasn't pointing
And
any
I put
fingers
in-
at, Beth or Matt, but I'm just a new person.
Okay.
I did my classes from there and I put in for the day off.
Yeah. Okay, so read the names again, please, John.
Danielle Clare and Teresa Cowdery.
Do I have a motion to appoint them as ballot clerks?
So moved.
Okay.
second.
So that's a
I beat
Pam,
him.
and then second by Matt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Beth.
Yes.
Okay, great. Oh, and me also, yes. Thank you. John?
The next item has to do, I want you to make aware for the budget plan. I do not intend to have the entire budget ready for you for next week when we start on budgets. The library trustees will be presenting next week, so you'll have the library budget with all of the backup information for library. The following week, I'll have all the information for that department that's presenting. And as we go along, we'll be doing just in time for each of for the various departments as they come in. I think when we get to the old business, I think we need to have a discussion whether the Board of Selectmen are going to meet in the meeting room or on Zoom with the trustees next week. But for right now, I just wanted to update you on the plan for the budget.
Okay, thank you, John. What else is on your list?
The broadcast of meetings, there were some questions about it. YouTube gets picked up off our site and then used by Lakes Region to broadcast over cable TV. They say this has been far faster way of getting the meetings online than the old mail the disc, and it could be 2 or 3 weeks afterwards before the meeting was shown. So when Susan finishes and have the meeting posted, that's where Grace at Lakes Region pulls it down from in order to rebroadcast it. Next item is the bridge update. There was a question on the breakdown. In 2018, the town paid $32,955.94 on design fees. In 2019, the town paid another $112,517.17 in design fees. This year, they've paid $10,354.15 as the final payment on those design fees. And right now, the town has contracts out for $84,227.04 to McJohnson File with the construction administration fees, and $588,425 for construction costs to Earth, the Locks firm. So that's the breakdown in terms of all of the bridge. And I know I'd been asked, so I just wanted to share that with the entire board.
So John, just so folks understand, we have approximately $250,000 in money already set aside for red listed bridges. Of the total money that you're talking about there, we end up, our share is 20%. The state's share is 40% at the start of the project and 40% at the end of the project. So using your numbers, it looks like we're going to use up what? Approximately how much?
Well, if you tried to claim for the money you paid out in 18 and 19, and I need to have some research done as to how that was paid, it would be 166,000 would be used. I believe it will be less than that number because most likely where you paid those out already, you would not be requesting the 20% match from the trustees for that engineering money. So my expectation is roughly 150 of the 250 is going to go towards this project, with the state then paying the remainder of the 830,000 total.
Yeah. So that leaves us with a little bit of money for other projects should they come up.
Could leave you with about 100,000.
Yeah. Is everybody clear on that? And everybody understands what we're talking about? Okay, good, John. Thank you.
Okay. Next item has to do with the center school. The building inspector and I looked at that. As far as the project that had been suggested last fall, the building inspector and I think the first thing you should do is to jack the building and to put a solid foundation under it. It's sitting on blocks basically, and you can see the floor showing those signs. The reason I say it should be jacked first is because you'll probably crack the walls. So you'd want to do that before you started fixing the walls and everything else in there, and make sure the foundation was solid. That's just the report on that. The center school. The other thing is, I think from a management standpoint, you really need to have a use for that school before you put a lot of money into anything beyond preserving it from deterioration.
So John, can the facilities committee / highway committee get a copy of that report?
It was an oral report. I did not have it written down, but the building inspector could write something down if the facilities had further questions. I think the best way is to go look at the building and look under it.
Yeah. I think if you don't mind, if we can get Scott to even write up a short paragraph or two so it's documented and can be referenced, I personally think that would be helpful. And that
I will ask. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can. I know he's busy, but if we could work that in. It just
I don't know how we got along without a building inspector when we didn't have one. He is very busy, as is Carol. So before you had a building secretary, a building assessing secretary, she really helped Jeff out with getting the MS1 out. Before you had that position filled and the building inspector position filled, I think you really fell behind.
Well,
but I think we're well getting caught up.
I mean, people would call and they couldn't get through to anybody. I think we fixed the majority of those, especially as they relate to the building and the assessing.
The next item has to do with procedures for town hall staff, in particular as it relates to the highway foreman. I've asked that he be given clear written request as to what's expected before and after. I understand there is a walkthrough tomorrow at the school.
John, excuse me. I don't know if you said it. This is in relationship to the work associated with elections.
Sorry, yes, that's, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the context.
But I'm not sure everybody else did.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
So the election setup, there was some failures in communication as to what highway was expected to do, especially in the tearing down. Afterwards, it didn't help that his phone broke. And that's why I'm saying we should have everything in writing ahead of time so that it doesn't depend upon last minute communication as to expectations. Certainly, we want flexibility as we go along, but the more we can have planned ahead of time, the better it will be.
Yeah, so I think, we're directing this to several different people. One is the town clerk, because the town clerk has things that need to get taken over and returned back to town hall. We need
Moderator.
moderator who might have other things and other needs related to that or unrelated to the town clerk. And then I think the third part is the school, and I'm assuming that's via the principal, Jocelyn Young. But John, I guess we should confirm that, but
Well, yeah, I've been communicating with Jocelyn, so
okay. Well, then
I'm
that's
sure
fine.
she'll pass it to whoever there at the school is the one that needs to have it.
Yeah, because maybe Tom or whoever else is helping there with the setups and stuff, needs to get involved. And so we just need to make sure we have it in writing so that we can hold people accountable.
So this is 100% will be at the school for voting. Because last time
It
they
is
were
next-
talking about,
For November, yes,
okay.
yes. And then,
Somebody asked me this past weekend, and like I said, we're still hearing 95% yes, but the school, so definitely at the school.
November is
Elementary
definitely at the
school.
school. And that, again, whether we do others, could be considered for maybe our joint meeting topic. So keep that in mind when that topic comes up. Okay, go ahead, John. You have other items, I'm sure.
Yes, I plan to use a billing service for the tax bills this fall rather than the stuffing the envelopes, folding, stuffing, stamping, and all the rest of it goes on. It's going to cost us about $400, but you save all of the labor. And where we're short-staffed actually already, the plan is to proceed in which we will simply send an electronic file to the company. They'll mail out the bills and put the postage on. And like I said, it's going to cost us about $400 total to do it that way, over and above what the postage alone would be. And that $400 they are going to supply the paper, the envelopes, the printing, all the labor. So I think that's a good investment. So I just wanted to make the board aware of it, that's how we're going to proceed.
Question on that, John? Will it still go out and show that it's, town of Northwood, sort of like our letterhead and stuff? So nothing changes other than how it actually gets sent out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that people might, looking at the stamp, be able to figure out that it came from a different source, but they're going to have, that's going to be about the only difference.
Yeah. Okay. So
It costs less for this company to mail because of the way they do things for mailing. But yeah.
Okay. Other questions by anybody else? Okay, hearing none. John, please.
The next one, one of the people on the facility committee asked for me to share that if there's anyone who wants to donate land along Route 4 for a safety complex and knows of land along Route 4 near the center of town, or just off Route 4 near the center of town, or a generous citizen out there would like to donate, certainly the town would be interested in hearing from you.
Donate or like be willing to sell.
Yes.
Yes.
Sell at a reasonable rate.
Yeah.
I have a list this long. I'm going by my list, checking off one at a time.
Okay. And that's everything I had for my report. Oh, I had one other thing. I'm sorry. Is it? I would like to have the board authorize Matt Fry to sign all of the documentation related to the Northwood Playground grant that you voted to accept last time. We didn't vote as to who was going to do the signing. So I know Hal signed one of them already, but to authorize either Hal or Matt, I guess would be the best way to put it, to sign necessary documentation on that grant. No, Hal, you signed the one on the election. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
Matt signed the one on the grant. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to suggest it be Matt. I mean, Matt, do you have any problem?
No, I have the hard copies with me. There's probably likely to be a couple of back and forths on some paperwork, so I'm happy to be the signer on all that.
Okay. Do I have a motion to have Matt sign for all the rec grant related items? Tim
I'll make the motion.
made the motion. Pam, do you have the second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second. Discussion?
Hearing none, we're voting on authorizing Matt to sign for everything related to the rec facilities-related grant money. Roll call vote. Matt, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Pam?
Yes,
Beth?
Yes, and thank you, Matt, for doing that.
Yes, thank you. And Tim?
Yes, thank you, Matt, and the people in Concord also, the legislation stuff, so that was good.
I thought of one more thing.
Hey, you don't let me vote yet, John. I got to vote yes. Okay, now.
We tax deeded 8 properties. 2 of them were owners unknown, so that really, there were 6 properties that we took for taxes from private landowners.
Thank you.
Just an update on that.
Okay, anything else, John?
No, I don't think so. I think that's
Okay,
everything.
pretty good list. Let me just go down my list of things that we discussed there. No, I think that is everything. Okay, we're going to move on to old business. We already discussed the community center plan. Is there anything else that we need to bring up under that? Anybody? And we also discussed already the town hall meeting room plan. But again, I'll open it up if somebody wants to bring up something related.
just a quick thing.
Sure.
It dawns on me that when they're wiring for the tables for the mics, if they could get some extra extension cords under the table, because if we are going to bring our laptops in, we will need more extension cords in there.
Excellent point. Yeah, I know I have to keep mine plugged in after 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
Good point.
yeah, me too.
Okay, John, and so you can keep that
The
in mind.
meeting's only gonna be 2 hours, we'll be all set.
That's one way to keep the meeting short.
Meetings.
Computer battery runs out, say goodnight.
Matt,
Matt?
So just as someone who spends a lot of time on Zoom these days, multiple people on the same meeting in the same physical location is a nightmare. So what I think we're much better off figuring out is a permanent computer setup, whether it's a laptop that somebody brings or whatever. But I know the projector's been set up in there for a while, but having a way to project sound and video onto the wall and basically have all Zoom participants seeing the same feed, and then we can have them up on the wall as opposed to multiple. We don't really need multiple computers going in there. And frankly, multiple computers would potentially muddy that situation.
yeah, actually, if you have multiple computers, you have to mute the sound and the microphone on all but one of the units.
But some of us might want to have the laptop, not for Zoom, but for all of the emails and the documents attached.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because like I just flipping back too.
We're probably all in front of a screen right now, looking at a plethora of emails.
Okay, but I think Matt's also got a good point, because like I said again, I watched the school board meeting. It can get very cumbersome if you're not careful.
Well, Matt always has good points.
I think
All of you do.
Try.
Aw.
okay. Well, you know, I think
Matt.
I think we're getting into the next item a little bit, so I'm going to open it up for discussion now, and that's our select board meeting location. I'm going to just kick off the discussion saying, you know, we've changed the number of people that can meet in the meeting room, and if folks are interested in using that for the meeting, I think we should bring it up for discussion and a motion at this point. As Matt and others have pointed out, we need to make sure we're comfortable with the venue and the way it's going to work. But I think if you want to do something, now is the time to at least talk about that, or as Pam and Matt mentioned, at least start making some comments, recommendations, so that John and Paul and others can work on moving us towards that if that's the way we want to go. So I'm just going to open it up for discussion and try to get a sense of the board as to what they would prefer. So Beth, would you mind starting us off on that discussion?
I'm okay with meeting at the town hall, but I'm going to say we need to be done at 9 o'clock. some nights we finish after 11 and that's not gonna work for me anymore.
Okay,
Especially if I have to go home and take a shower and then get, you know what I mean? Though.
yeah,
So if we meet there, I want to be done by 9.
okay, point well taken. Other folks, Tim, do you want to speak next, please?
Yeah, I feel the same way, 9:30 at the latest. And I don't know if like, you and Matt being chair and co-chair have the computers to go back and forth the screens and check stuff. And then obviously we'll be up on the big picture board, but if you guys have access to a computer for a citizens forum or you want to look back and forth in records, maybe you, John and Matt, maybe that won't, muck up the computer system too bad. It's only like 3 people have them, so.
Okay, Pam, how do you feel?
Is this for the budget presentations or just us meeting?
Well, I think for now, what I'm talking about are our meetings, but recognize that, for example, on the 6th, they will be, they will include budget discussions with, for example, the library trustees. So it's really both, Pam.
So back up. So on the 6th of October, our BOS meeting, the library will be there for budget. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
And
I'm
then-
not familiar with budget presentations and how many people usually attend those. So that would be my question is, as far as us meeting at the town hall, I don't have a problem with that. I concur. I'd like to be done 9 or so because I get up at 5 a.m. and night
Recurring
driving.
theme here.
But for budget meetings, for budget hearings, what is your usual population during the budget hearings?
Well,
Are we within the 22?
let's take the folks coming up, which is the library. I would expect, based on past experience, that we would be in the room, as well as most, if not all, the library trustees. So there could be 3 or 4 of them. There could be trustee alternates, so maybe you're at 5. And then Donna Bunker is probably going to be there. So there's probably going to be 6 additional people.
Well, plus you could have a bunch of budget committee members because we've asked them to attend.
That's
Right.
also correct.
We
The
could be
plan
at
is to
20
go out
we could
over
be at
Zoom.
22.
I'm sorry. Now, Pam, I couldn't hear you. Would you repeat that, please?
But we'd be, under the 22.
Well, we'd have to be careful about how we do it. So if,
Right.
for example, we're expecting, let's say, the 6 people that I see on the screen here now, and we're expecting 6 more presenters, then we would have to tell the budget committee, we'd like up to 10 of you folks to participate in person if you can.
There's 8 of us on screen right now.
I
Well,
was just gonna say that.
my
I mean,
anticipation,
Remote, and Susan could be remote.
right, my anticipation is Susan especially will be remote and be managing it from
Yeah.
where she does. And making sure it goes out on live on YouTube. Even
Yeah,
if we
all
can
that
get the live stream, I think we continue with the Zoom and the YouTube live. And Susan doing it from home would make a lot of sense. Whether Paul's present or not present, I may want him in the room. I don't know yet, but we can talk about
Well,
that.
for the cameras and all that kind of stuff and
Yep, most
audio.
likely, because
You know,
it's not my
maybe,
field.
in the office at least.
So worst case
Yeah.
scenario, we're carrying 7 or 8 people ourselves, and then the rest is up for the public and committees, and so we
Yeah,
figure 8 people are meeting officials, and then everybody else, right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think, Tim, you're talking along the lines that I think we have to think about, and we probably have to set the priority. So, obviously, if it's a select board meeting, the select board members get first shot at open slots. Then, if it's a budget presentation, well then, like the library trustees, they get second shot at the slots. And if they tell us there's 8 more people coming, then we're up to 15 or 16. So then, there's room for 6 more budget committee folks.
We could open up to bidding too,
You
who
have to
wants to-
RSVP.
Well, again, how we personally handle that, I don't know. We might have to defer to John.
The
Well,
highest
I
bid
mean-
gets you in the door.
Yeah.
As long as we're on Zoom, we'll make it an open Zoom so the budget committee members can log into Zoom directly. And the general public can go into Zoom directly for the budget portion of the presentation.
So that they can see directly.
Susan, yeah, Susan would have the ability, if somebody's mic is causing chatter to everybody else, we could, you can shut down one of the boxes
Okay.
if that box is the one
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Are you saying
with-
remote from home or I can remote back in her office?
From home. Doesn't matter. She could be in her office, but could be at home just as easy. It doesn't matter once you're on remote.
Okay, we're having a little bit of a discussion amongst ourselves without having Matt's input. Matt, can you please provide your input, please?
Sure. I'm pretty much in line with everybody else. I'm comfortable with meeting at the hall. I just want to make sure that we've got adequate plans in place, that if a hot button topic is going to be on the agenda, that we've really thought out how we're going to have full participation from everybody who needs to be there if we're starting to approach that limit of 22. So,
Yeah.
and I think we're getting there.
Okay, I think you're bringing up a good point, though, in the sense that I think we need to test this. And so I'm going to ask that I'm going to suggest that John and Paul, based on what they've heard tonight, which is that all the select board members will be there. We'll ask John to work with the library trustees, find out how many people there are going to attend in person versus live. You already know. Okay, he's ahead of the game here. And then I think we, based on that, want to test things out and test, before the meeting, make sure we all know how it works and that we're comfortable with it. And then based on that and how it works, then we can invite as many budget committee members as would fit yet.
Now, Hal, you had asked earlier about some of the selectmen being able to face other selectmen.
Yes.
If we're going towards the 22, you're going to have to be facing other people's back, because that was part of the plan. So if you had aerosols coming, they would be going at the person's back rather than their face,
Right.
even though so if what you may want to do is you start out in one configuration when you've got trustees of the library and budget committee members there. And then if 10 people leave, you might be able to pause, rearrange so that the selectmen could move forward a table like we had suggested earlier, and then set it in a more of a discussion oriented format for the board. The budget presentation is going to basically be just that, a presentation to the board. We'd put it first on the agenda, 6 o'clock. They would come, they'd make their presentation, you'd ask questions, the budget committee would ask questions. Some people on Zoom might ask questions, almost like a public hearing. And when you finish that, then you might resume a more regular format where the board could then discuss with each other.
Okay.
Whereas the initial part, I envision it being a straight budget presentation from the library trustees.
Okay, Beth has a question.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be in favor of that then. I wouldn't be in
Well-
favor of looking at people's backs and not seeing them. That's rude. I could, no.
Well, it's like we did in college, where we sat in rows facing the professor.
Yeah, I think what John's saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, the library trustees / Donna, who's ever doing the presenting, would be up on the stage doing that?
Yeah, but she'd be near the big tree.
Oh.
And we'd
Okay,
be on the opposite side,
So
looking at.
Are we all facing the big tree?
Yes,
So
Yes,
she's facing us.
yes.
yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I thought I
whoever's
was
presenting, the front,
facing- I thought I
the
was
front-
like listening to her.
no. The people doing the presenting, the front 2 rows doing the presenting up by the big tree, and the row in front of that could be facing towards the group that are in the table looking at them. So like in all the higher education I've been to, where you'd have long tables for a lecture style hall, you'd be sitting there looking at the lecturer. Once that finishes, get up, move your chair around, get on the other side so you're facing each other, sort of like happens when they do these discussion groups in a lecture.
Yeah,
They break down into groups.
okay. It sounds like everybody is comfortable with this. who wants to be involved with the testing? And John, when do you think we should try to do the testing?
Probably try to do the testing tomorrow or Thursday. And I don't, anyone's welcome to come.
Does anybody in particular want to be part of the testing? I mean, I can rearrange my time on Thursday to make it work. I have some flexibility that day, as long as it's around midday, John. But does anybody else in particular feel they want to be part of that testing? We can work out the timing with you then. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
I have to be done by 3:00. That's the only deadline I have right now, unless Marissa has scheduled an interview.
Well,
Because
let's
I've been
just see
helping
if
her interview.
anybody else is interested in participating in the testing. Anybody else want to help or be?
I'd be happy to be part of the process, but I'm pretty inflexible Wednesday and Thursday. I've got plenty of time on Friday, but that doesn't really help.
John, are you interested in switching it to Friday, given Matt's technical expertise, or is that out of the question?
If it was Friday morning, I could do it. I'm on the Primex board and we have board meetings in the afternoon, but yeah, Friday morning I could do it.
That would work for me. I don't want anybody to reschedule this because of me, though.
No, I think, Matt, you have a lot of technical expertise. If you could help, that'd be appreciated. Okay, so let's plan on Friday morning then.
That technical expertise or computer nerd you just called him?
Well,
A little of both.
Sounds like he got smooth.
but he has a lot of experience with this stuff. Let's just say it that way. Okay.
Matt.
Wow, come on, give me a break.
Okay, Jan.
Okay,
Okay, so Paul, Susan and I will work at having something lined up to give it a trial.
well, why don't you just let us know what time you and Matt have decided, and then if others want to join, they'll be there.
Matt, what do you want to say? 9:00 Friday?
9 o'clock's great.
Great.
9 a.m.
Appreciate all the effort on this. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. Okay, moving on now to the health officer job description. Everybody had a copy of that, I believe, in their meeting pack. John, do you want to lead the discussion on this?
Yeah, just as soon as I finish putting this in my calendar so I don't forget it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do the
Was
same.
that in the earlier packet or this week's packet?
John sent it separately, I believe.
Oh, that's right. It was separate. Yes, you're right.
But the health officer, it's also in part of one of the packets, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the
Yeah, it
packet.
seemed like I saw it.
It is.
All right, my mistake. I just found it. It's there.
Hal, you can't make it
Page 4.
Friday, so don't put that in your calendar. You're gonna be in Concord Friday for legislation, don't you?
That's right. Friday at 9 doesn't work for Hal.
Yes.
The Friday's no good.
Yeah, that's why I was just looking.
I thought you sent out an email asking us any questions for Friday, but I think, wait a minute,
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, that won't work. Well, we could wait and test it on Monday.
No, you guys just test it. And I'm sure it'll be fine.
Okay. We'll meet on 9 and test it then, Matt.
Yeah, whatever you guys work out, you can fill us in and we'll just have to deal with it on Tuesday.
Yeah,
We'll be good to
okay,
go.
the health officer, I did send it out, but I also, it also is included in the packet. Or at least a copy of the
I got
packet I have. The most recent one has it in it. Basically what I did is I took the combined position of health officer, code enforcement officer, and just took out all the code enforcement building inspection stuff and left it as health officer.
Tim, go ahead.
Have we officially getting Jackie's resignation? Is she done? I mean, we never said it on record that we accept her resignation, we taking her off the books? What is, I mean, officially, anybody?
Beth
Yeah.
wants to speak to that.
No, she said to me that she's done that, the previous TA never followed through with even getting the paperwork and stuff to her, so she never even signed anything.
Oh, she was never really even formally,
She would never even, okay, so I guess we won't
Yeah.
accept her resignation because she was never on the books.
Right, because I had asked her, yeah.
okay,
Okay, I just want to make sure it's something official before we keep,
good point, Tim. Good point. Okay, so now we're up to the health official. And John, before we get into this discussion, please clarify, did we appoint already Scott as the deputy?
We recommended to the state that Scott be appointed the deputy. The state makes the appointment, the
Oh,
board
okay.
makes the recommendation to the state.
Okay,
So I have not heard back from the state, which surprises me, but maybe Scott heard directly, but I will check on
okay.
what's going on. But we did nominate him for deputy, and
We did what we needed to do.
yes, we did what we needed to do, and we
Okay.
got the form filled out, signed, and sent to the address they wanted it to go to electronically, so it's not dependent on the mail.
Okay, so deputy's taken care of. Now we're working on the actual health officer. Does anybody have any questions on what John distributed in terms of the description, which is, again, basically what was in the combined job description, now segregating out the health officer duties? Anybody have any questions on that? Beth?
Are we going to be looking for another building inspector, health officer? Because it would be nice to have him as the same position.
what,
Hold on a second. Say that again, Beth. I didn't quite grasp the question.
We have an interim building inspector right now, right?
No, we appointed Scott LaCroix as the building inspector, and I have asked Charlie to function as the deputy as necessary. I don't know if that's been formally approved by the board, but where he had been, he was on the books as far as having been an employee. So I've just continued to use him as the backup building inspector. That's what we currently have. We have
Okay,
a
so,
building inspector and we have a backup.
So why don't we just have Scott do both then? Scott LaCroix do both.
is that gonna be a problem with hospitalization need,
Let's not talk about that
Okay.
here.
okay, so let's just try to clarify. We have Scott, who we recommended to the state to be the deputy health officer. And he is also our building inspector. And Charlie is his quote deputy building inspector.
Right, so why would we make it be the opposite? Have Scott be the health officer as well, and then have the deputy health officer be the same as the deputy?
Oh, go ahead, John, and then
Yeah,
Matt.
because the way it works with Charlie, he only comes in when we call him. We do a 4-hour minimum for him whenever he comes in, and I would not want to be calling him in to do a water test on a 4-hour minimum. We mainly use him when Scott can't be there for a day or something like that.
Right, but if
He's
he was
also
still
going to go working for the court, and he'll have less availability. Right now, he has pretty wide availability, but I think it's going to go down to 2 days a week availability here shortly. So I'd actually got another name I plan to call to see if I could get another backup for those days when neither one of them may be available. Our building is really taken off in town. I mean, we're.
I have
processing-
another name, and if somebody's approached me also, if there's, for backup for inspection person, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've got one name I haven't called on my desk, but I'd appreciate that one too.
yeah.
When we get.
I'll get the name and number tomorrow.
Okay.
So Matt, you had a question or comment?
Comment. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to have those positions parsed out and separate in that I think that health officer position needs to be staffed by somebody with an understanding of the sort of medical health side of the job, right? So whereas this person would have some important duties in the event of like a large scale viral outbreak, which we used to say, well, that's never going to happen. But I think it's safe to say that we now know that this is a real thing, right? So
Yep.
understanding, you know, the way that even something as simple as water quality can impact public health, and having that background, I think is who would be shooting for this position. So that's why, to me, it makes a lot of sense to have them separated.
Yeah, actually, my idea of an ideal candidate would be somebody from the fire department with an EMT that we had regularly available, which, you know, with that medical training where they need to have an advanced EMT in order to be in the fire department full time. That would be where I would think we'd start looking, but that's just my thought.
That's a good
We
point.
tried that.
I understand, but just because we failed once doesn't mean we can't try again.
Okay, so I think really the point up for consideration is we're looking at separating out the health officer as a separate job description. And I'll just provide my 2 cents. I think in my mind that makes sense. It does not preclude us from having either the building inspector be the deputy health officer or the health officer. But by having them separate, it does allow us to have 2 different people, which I think, given Matt's comment, especially for the health officer, in my mind, that flexibility is a good thing to have. So are there any other questions regarding the health officer job description, which John passed out? Okay, hearing none, then I'd entertain a motion to, what's the word, adopt the
Yes.
health officer job description that John sent us. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll move to accept the health officer job description as written.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Tim. Further discussion on adopting the job description? Hearing none. Pam,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. I'm just going to keep the topic open for just a little bit longer. Anybody that has suggestions in terms of who might fill this position, please, help facilitate that by either talking to John or them. Matt, go ahead.
Do we have a pay rate or a range for the position?
No, we haven't. That would be another thing to set for, I would think something like $20 an hour or a stipend per month, or either one of those options would be something you could consider. You do have some money in the budget, but I don't know how much you want to expend on that to do that.
How does the board feel about stipend versus hourly rate?
Don't we have stipend in the budget? How much was that? Do you remember?
It's like $2,000.
But that's for both positions.
No, that I don't remember.
It
We're
would be for the deputy and the health officer.
Yeah, we're not paying the building inspector any extra for his health inspection duties.
Yeah, I think he'd get paid at the same rate if he had to cover something, wouldn't he? I mean,
Yes.
Okay, so what's Scott's pay rate?
Scott, I think is $25 an hour. I'd have to double check, but I think that's what he's at.
Well,
I
think
thought we had a stipend for this in the budget, though.
yeah, it was like
You do.
2,000 also, it wasn't much.
Yeah.
But I guess really the point I'm making is I prefer hourly, but that's just me. But what do other folks think?
I mean, a stipend makes sense to me. I'm sorry, I didn't wait to be recognized.
No, let's go ahead.
A stipend makes sense to me in that whoever takes this job is probably going to do it out of a sense of, duty to the town.
Community spirit, yeah.
Community spirit. It's not going to be about the money. And I think when, if the proverbial poo was to hit the fan, we wouldn't want to be tracking hours spent on that as opposed to just saying, this is part of my job. I'm going to, pull up my pants and do it. So stipend makes sense to me.
That's the way it was.
Yeah.
So that,
I guess I would look at the paid by the hour position where we're going to be doing it with 2 people. Because if someone's going to do this, they might have a regular job because it's not really a lot of money, and they might not be able to get to something during the day, but somebody else might be able to. I don't know. I think by the hour is okay.
The budget for the health officer is $6,648.
oh, so it's way more than I thought. So that might cover both the deputy and the,
Is there a training and travel line or anything in there?
It's
part of that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a second. I got to get back into the budget. There is, there's $1,200 for environmental health, and I'm not quite sure what that is. There's $25 for supplies, and Social Security, and Medicare, and that's all that's it. And then there's a bunch of $1 lines. But basically there's a $1,200 in there for environmental, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but I suspect there must be something that the town has to do that's $1,200.
yeah, Matt, I guess on the stipend thing, my concern is like with COVID especially, we might be asking a lot of the person, and I guess, maybe not everybody would view it as a community thing and take it more as a job. But again, it very well might depend on the person you hire. So I don't know, maybe the board wants to be flexible on that. We can certainly think about it and continue to advertise, but I would say that we could offer either or and leave it open for discussion. How do folks feel about that?
Well, it would be divided among 2 people if it's 2 people. That's why I suggested doing it hourly.
Yeah, if we already have the deputy doing it hourly, it might, now I see what you're saying, maybe makes more sense to keep it consistent. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense to me, Beth.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
okay. So if that's the case, and Scott is at essentially $25 an hour, should we set the rate for the health officer also at that same rate?
I would think so. And I mean, just that now COVID, they're probably getting more than typically. So I
Yep.
think if we reach that $6,000 threshold, I mean, I think that would be understandable during the situation we're in right now. But
Yeah.
obviously that money's been plenty, in the past. So we might want to look at that number come budget season for next year, just in case.
Just in case, yeah. Okay, so John, you clear on what we're doing here?
My understanding is the health officer is going to be offered $25 an hour if it's a standalone position.
I think that's what everybody said. Do you need a motion to that effect?
That's like an as needed, right?
Yes, that's just only as needed.
And I just did the math. That's like 266 hours if that money was without taxes, but
Yeah.
still as a ballpark, that's plenty of hours.
Yeah, okay, we should be covered then.
Thank you,
I
Matt.
think that's a good idea, Matt.
Yeah, all good points. Good, okay. So John, you're all set on this then, right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
except I don't have the health officer yet.
You will.
Well,
Yeah, well, you're gonna continue to post, right?
Get one tomorrow, okay?
Yeah, I think the fact that we're offering that for a salary may generate. Now, my understanding is if we appoint somebody who's currently an employee, we might do it as not $25 additional rate, but they could either track their hours separately or because they'd be overtime if they were over 40. If lately the fire department has been the one taking our water samples to Concord and which is a health officer duty, but we haven't paid them any different. I mean, it's just part of the fire department duties. So if they do health department duties as part of another job in town, I don't plan to pay them separately for that.
Okay. Everybody clear on what John's saying?
Is there a way though in their check to do two separate lines? Like at school, they can do that.
You can do two separate lines, but just be aware that you may well end up paying an overtime rate instead of the $25 if they go over 40 hours because of the two positions.
So at the fire station, they work 48-hour shifts and they can work up to 52 hours before it becomes overtime.
If you've set the fire department up, which you're allowed to do on a 52-hour schedule, it'd be after 52 hours that they would get overtime.
Okay.
Everybody comfortable with the approach we're taking? Any other questions? Okay, that was a good discussion. I'm going to move on now then to the feedback that I got from the other board members. And first off, I'd just like to say thank you for everybody being open and honest. I think the comments were all pretty much right on the money. So here's some of the things that I'm going to try to do. On agenda topics, I'm going to continue to bring up the proposed budget as early as we can in the process and ask for items. If you don't see anything, if you don't see something that you want covered, then you can respond back. Even after the budget, even after the agenda is finalized, that doesn't mean we can't add something. As John did, he added a couple items tonight to his list. The only thing I would ask in that case is just please be cognizant and aware of the other select board members. They like to have the information in advance and stuff. And so if it's something relatively straightforward that we can address without, preparation or paperwork or backup, we'll try to address it as soon as you bring it up. But otherwise, I think we will ask in deference to the other board members to move it to the next meeting. So again, just please speak up on agenda topics and we'll make sure they're covered somehow, some way. In terms of meetings wrapping up by 9, you saw we already started to split up some of the meetings. So I think we're going to just have to do that. And if we're going to wrap up at 9, we'll also try to do what I just did last week, which is at some point say we're moving on to the non-public. And then if we come back out of non-public and we have time, we can take up the remaining items. Otherwise, they're going to move on to the next meeting. There was also some concern about me taking some unilateral action or working directly with some of the employees. I think that was the case. I think it was especially exacerbated by our former TA either not being in the office or not working the full number of hours primarily. And quite frankly, I did get a lot of emails directly from employees asking questions and stuff, and felt that they did need to happen. Now that John's on board, I do believe that we are back to the way things should be expected. John is my primary contact with anybody at Town Hall. And I think John is not shy about speaking up if he feels I'm overstepping bounds and talking to folks. I know when Paul joined, there was some direct interaction there in terms of getting him in the swing of the agenda process and stuff, but even that has now all filtered back through John. I guess on a related note, I want to say that there has been some progress in my mind. When John initially came, he was new, he was trying to figure out who we are, what we're doing, and all that kind of stuff. And I was proposing, I'd say the vast majority of the agenda items and going through them with him. I think if you look at what we did in this last 2 sets of meetings where we split them up, John was actually driving, I'd say, at least 80, if not 90% of those. So I think we're also making progress in terms of John, as the TA now driving a lot of this, which I feel very good about. I also started to try to take into account or try to act on one of the suggestions in terms of how we handle items during the meetings. I hope you're seeing that I'm taking what I believe is a more moderator type style. So you saw it tonight. I'm asking folks to discuss stuff first, then I'm asking for the motion, and then we'll have, the final discussion. So I'm trying to do that, but please, if you feel that I am either leading the board on some items inappropriately, or you're not being heard, I just would appreciate it if you speak up. I think everybody here is not too shy to do that, but I'll just remind you that's your prerogative to do that. There was also some discussion about priorities, and we're going to continue to try to do that. You'll see most of the priority discussion related to the agenda and the order that I put stuff on the agenda. And again, if you feel you have differences of opinion as to what John and I put for the priority and therefore the list in order, again, just please speak up when I send out that proposed agenda. And I guess I already made the final point that I wanted to make. Both the time and the detail that I'm going through with John, I think especially over the last couple meetings, especially, I mentioned this to John, it just seems to have come together now. And as I said again, John is now really driving the vast majority of the agenda items, and I feel very good about that. So that's what I took away from the feedback that I got. If you feel I didn't address some of the items that you brought up or feel that I need to do something differently, I'd again just appreciate a note. My whole goal in this is just to make sure that we're working as a board as best we can. Beth?
I hope you took that. We do think you're doing a really good job, and you are always you always listen to us. I know I've called and vented to you many a time. So you are very much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate that. But again, the whole point of this wasn't to, try to get some compliments or anything. The real goal is we're a board. We need to work together, and, we need the feedback to do that. Otherwise, without the feedback, you can't improve. So again, thank you very much. And if you feel I didn't address everything or not address it fully, again, just please, a note, a call, a comment. I'll try to do the best I can, but we're trying to, make sure we run the town as best we can. And that includes how I run the meetings. So again, thank you. And if there's anything else, please. Okay, I'm going to move on to committee appointments. John, I believe you have some for us, or no?
Yes. We asked Linda to send out emails to all members of the Facility and Highway Committee. We received response back that Betty Smith and Joe McCaffrey would like to be reappointed.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
I was going to do it committee by committee.
Oh, okay, okay. So this is to the Facilities Committee, correct?
This is to the road committee, but I understand the road committee is also going to do facilities. Joe McCaffrey wasn't really interested in the facilities committee, but my understanding is you're going to have both overlapping memberships. So you have one, the first part of the meeting deals with roads and the second part with facilities, or vice versa, so that you address the topics individually by the committees.
Right, and part of that was because many of the people were the same people, and rather than exercise them twice, Well, and also since it was the same people, why not just meet once?
Yeah, most people hadn't gotten back to Linda at this point, but we do have, I think we need to keep appointing as people come along so you can at least start to meet. You've got Bob Strobel on there. You have, I think you
Betsy
appointed
Colburn's
Betsy.
on there?
Yeah, Betsy's on there. You have 2 select board members, I believe, on there.
Yeah.
And with Betty Smith and Joe McCaffrey, you've got enough to start meeting.
Yeah, and, you know, the committees can decide if they feel they're at the point where they should break into 2 parts or whatever, the committee will work on that and work through that. I don't think the board should be predetermining that. So I think what you're really saying, John, is we're going to appoint, you're asking to appoint Joe, and who else was it, please?
Betty Smith.
Betty Smith, yes, of course. To the Highway/Facilities Committee.
Understanding that Joe may leave after the Highway Committee before the facilities, but as long as there's a quorum without him, that's not an issue.
I think the others may do this a similar thing. So, okay, is there any questions or discussion on this point?
No, so far we have Betty Smith, Joe McCaffrey, Bob Strobel, John Boudreau, Betsy Colburn, and then Tim, myself, and Chris.
I know
Yes.
that Ginger mentioned that she wanted to be on that as well. She mentioned that she had maybe made a request inside some other written document. So knowing that Mrs. Dole is probably watching, I would say that it might be best to send another letter of interest if that's the case.
I don't, I'll
Or she
check
could
with her.
send a quick email.
Yeah.
Give me a quick email, Mrs. Dole.
Okay,
She might not be on tonight. She had a long day. She just texted me before the meeting started, so.
okay.
I actually think I do remember that. When do we appoint her? And if she decides she doesn't want, she can resign.
It's a great idea.
Okay, that's more proactive. I like that. Okay, so we got 3 up.
So,
I'll move that.
John, if anyone else does respond, can you just let me know that way we can send out an email to everyone that we know wants to go and, okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody wants to be there, didn't get their message back to Linda in time, show up at the next meeting and tell the board that you want to be appointed. We can appoint more next week.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to appoint Joe McCaffrey, Betty Smith, and Ginger Dole to the Joint Highway/Facilities Committee. Do I have that? Pam made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Beth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, very good.
I'm going to take this opportunity to make a public plea that it shouldn't be the same 12 people doing all of this committee work over and over again. So I know that I personally am trying to lean on folks in my own demographic with younger kids to get involved. And whether we can actually make it happen or not is a different story, but we need to get some new blood in here. Not to take anything away from people like Betty, Joe, and Ginger. They keep the town running, but I don't want them to have to do all the work.
And I know Hal's smiling, so he's going to put his plug in for the newsletter.
No. Not right
I will
now.
ask I
But-
think my employer is interested in the highway stuff, so I'll check with him in the morning.
Yeah, I think this is a good point. And Matt, you made it, and Tim just sort of followed on with that. I think if you personally ask folks, if we as board members personally ask folks, I think we'll get more people to participate. And I think that's part of the key. I think just announcing it and, putting it on the website is one thing, and it helps, get the information out there. But I think the personal touch oftentimes makes the difference. So please, I'm just going to encourage all the board members to just talk it up with everybody that they see. And, like they say, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, us talking to folks, you never know, it might work.
Are you looking for nuts for this committee?
Oh, geez, John. Yeah. Okay. Next.
Okay,
up-
next item on the committee is the 250th. Vina Dow, Sandra Priolo, Deborah Holmes and Taryn Bassett have volunteered.
Okay, is there any discussion on that or any other questions on that? So, John,
Committee again, please.
Go ahead.
Vina Dow, Sandra Priolo, Deborah Holmes, Taryn Bassett. And I apologize if I got anyone's
And the
name wrong.
committee?
Well, that's not probably the whole committee. You ought to have a selectman or two on there.
That's the 250th
No, the committee-
celebration.
committee.
Yes.
250, thank you. Gotcha. That's good.
But more can join is too. It's not closing the committee.
Yep.
Okay. Karen. Okay. John, I just want to double check. What we had said was we were going to appoint people to the committee and it would be their job then to talk amongst themselves and come up with a charge and then have that approved by the board. Is that correct?
Yes, by the Board of Selectmen, yes.
Does everybody understand what I just said? We're not going to try to tell the folks how to run their committee. We're going to ask the folks that have volunteered to be on the committee to come up with their charge. So do I have a motion to appoint Vina, Sandy Prioli, Deborah Holmes, and Taryn Bassett to this committee?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Beth. Is there any further discussion? Any further questions? Hearing none. Tim, how do you vote?
Yes. And thank you, people.
Yes. Matt,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
and Beth.
Yes.
Okay. And Hal is yes also. John, other appointments?
No, that was it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up is the discussion on EpiPens at the transfer station. There's been a couple emails back and forth regarding some findings that Mark, our chief police, Mark, our fire chief had. We also got some feedback from Primex. And then I sent a note asking whether we need legal opinion, at which point John said maybe we better get a sense of the board first before we spend money on a legal opinion.
Al, can I just stop real quick? Just that last, for Deborah Holmes, it was Deborah Ward is her official name, just for the
Oh,
record.
Ward?
Deborah Ward,
Oh, yeah, I guess I keep, yeah, you're right.
old school, but we
Yeah.
know, just for the minutes.
You're right. I think that's better. So do we need to revote, John, or is that clear?
No, as long as it's the same person, it's just a matter of bringing that up to date.
Yeah.
Because she signed it, she printed her name on the application, on the request as Deborah Holmes, but if her real name is Deborah Ward, then that's fine too.
Well,
She's the one who put Deborah Holmes on the form.
Okay.
I know it was Deborah Holmes, so that's who I was voting for.
For Joe's daughter.
Yeah, yeah. John, you'll just have to make it official somehow, okay? What
Yes, I will double check what name she
check.
wants on the appointment sheet.
knowledge?
Okay, yeah, what I wanted, before we go too much further on this, I wanted to know if there was a sense, does the board even want to continue down this path, or is the board fairly convinced that we should leave it to each individual to have their own EpiPen and to be responsible for themselves, and to rely upon calling EMTs, certainly do what we can for insect control to reduce the risk, but encourage our own employees and to have public be responsible for their own EpiPens. Before we went too much further, I wanted to get a sense of the board.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to let you start off the discussion and then we'll go to each board member. But since you were the one that raised the question originally, I'll let you start.
So for me, whereas we've already put this much time and effort on the fire chief's part and putting the calls into Primex and stuff, I think it's probably worth, however, an hour of billable time to the legal counsel just to get a sense of what they say. My fear is where we've now gone down the road this far if we just leave it be without really sort of tying a nice neat bow on it. You know, I'm a little nervous about where that leaves us in terms of our liability. So I'd like to at least get some counsel in terms of what they say. If at the end of it, the answer is it's neither our duty nor a good idea to have an EpiPen there, then I'm more than content with that answer. But I think it's worth finishing out the question.
Okay. Beth, how do you feel?
I don't think the town should be supplying EpiPens. I think that we should be looking for pest control to spray for not only the employees, but for everyone that goes to the transfer station or anywhere for that matter. If it's the library or the police department, wherever. But I think that if you have a condition or an allergy, you should be responsible for your own medication. I'm worried about what path this may lead us down, and it is a prescription. So, and they expire, I think 6 months, 10 months. I know it's not a whole year. I know even at school, the kids bring their own, they keep one at home and they keep one at school. I think if you have a bee allergy, you're going to probably want to keep one on you anyway.
Pam, how do you feel?
I'm kind of a little bit of all of you. Number one, if you have a bee allergy, you have an EpiPen with you. But if you're on a job site where bees are a hazard, I think it's reasonable, not that the employer supply you with one, but maybe we could think about a reimbursement if it is used on the job site. That might be a reasonable way to get around this. Is they could submit a expense that they had to use the pen on site. It would be an incident report. Obviously, they would have to report that they were stung and used their EpiPen as an incident report. That would be standard operating procedure, and the possibility that maybe they could submit for reimbursement. The other point is that our fire department, our paramedics are trained in the use of EpiPen, and I think we could check with the chief, but there's probably an EpiPen on board of the ambulance, of the meds they carry. So, emergency situation, and EpiPen is with the first responders. But I would think it would be reasonable as this isn't a job site hazard with those bees. Now, as far as town residents, to be aware that there is a bee hazard in that area, that are we under a liability that we should post that and just have, warning, the can site has, potential for bees. That way a person with a bee allergy would know and, either avoid that area or be prepared with an EpiPen. So I'd like to see maybe a policy where an employee could put in for the reimbursement.
Okay.
And maybe signage that is a hazard area.
Yeah, I appreciate that point. And John, if we do end up talking to the lawyer, then I think that might be a point that you could raise with him or her regarding, how we might handle the cost of that pen. So thank you, Pam. Tim, how do you feel?
I think it's up to the individual. I mean, where do we stop the line? I mean, are we going to carry insulin for the diabetics that we have working in town? I mean, like I said, we probably go up there and have it exterminated. We took care of the problem above the little transfer station, where the leverage control is, and they killed everything there. If they spray once or twice a year up there when there's a problem, I mean, obviously they keep the cans picked up and the cans hauled out. I don't think there's any ground nests up in there. I think they're obviously just like traveling through, because they like the sweet sodas and stuff, and through the tin can stuff. But I mean, if that's, as far as I'm concerned, it's up to the individual to carry their own. Because I mean, they're just going to keep going. And if it just does go to legal, I want something in writing, not just oh yeah, we're going to cover you. They're going to put something in writing and verify it's going to be on them, not us.
Okay. I'll just add my 2 cents. I've actually had experience with this. I used to travel quite a bit for my job, and So I had an allergic reaction out in Berkeley, California. It's a site where they had 1,500 employees, 2 doctors always on site, several nurses always on site. When I went to them, they said, do you want us to call an ambulance or do you want us to have somebody drive you to the doctor's office? We don't do that. Down in North Carolina, I faced exactly the same situation and had exactly the same result as in Cincinnati, Ohio. When I got up to Sarnia, Canada, actually in true Canadian style, they said, do you think you can make it to the emergency room on your own? Yeah, so anyway, the point is, my industrial experience is saying that people that are aware of legal issues and things like that tend to stay away from that. And so that's the way I'm leaning also. I tend to agree though with Matt that it might be worthwhile getting the legal opinion, especially if we are going to even consider what Pam suggested, which is reimbursement for an EpiPen used in a work situation. But I guess that's the way that's the only way I would see it. So yeah, Matt, go ahead.
So I just want to draw a quick parallel, right? So if instead of a transfer station, we ran a rattlesnake zoo, right? And one of our employees came to us and said, could you please provide us with antivenom? And we went, that's on you, right? So that's the way I keep thinking about this. It's an inherent hazard to the site. It is not the same as anything anyone else just brought up. There is not that inherent risk of anaphylaxis for you in where you were working. It is part of the risk of the job. So if we have people working high in a tree, we provide them with harnesses so they don't fall to their death. If we have people working on the police force, we provide them with bulletproof vests so they don't get shot, right? I mean, public health and employee safety is part of our job as the employer. So the arguments that have been made, I think, are false equivalencies to this point. And again, I'm not saying that the end result is something I'm sure of. I just think that to not see this through this one last step is a little foolhardy, especially where it was brought up by an employee, and for us to not do the complete due diligence, I think puts us at risk.
Was it brought up for the employee when he got hired or after the problem? Did we know about these 2 individuals when they hired? Did they tell just Chris, the supervisor? I'm just asking.
We wouldn't be able to ask that question as a
Yeah, you can't ask
hiring
that.
question.
Yeah.
Nor can you not hire them for that.
Right.
Okay, so everybody's heard the discussion of how do we want to handle this? Matt's suggesting that we go at least get a lawyer's opinion. What's people's comfort level in terms of what Pam suggested, where no, we don't provide it, but
Well,
if it's in the job, go ahead.
I will amend a little bit and say that kudos to Matt for a impassioned speech that really, kind of changed my mind. So to the minimal, I say, reimburse. To Matt's point, there are safety equipment that should be there on site. I say get the legal opinion. And, again, a person who is not allergic to bees, who suddenly is attacked and stung by 20 of them, might well have a toxic reaction. So, you've got your paramedics and all that, but I say get the lawyer just to ask on that for the liability of providing, and understand that it would be workplace training for the supervisors, which is very simple, basic training. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it is
they're
an
not-
issue having to replace them.
Okay, so let's go with Beth and then Tim, please.
It's just that it is a prescription. And if you take the EpiPen, you should be going to the hospital anyway. So we have them on the ambulance. And if we have them just there, okay, so if someone got 50 bee stings and we have an EpiPen and we didn't give it to them and they died, but we have an EpiPen right there in the office, are we liable for that? I just think if you have an allergy, you should bring your own.
Okay, there's two different things I'm hearing, and so we need to clarify what we asked the lawyer. The one is for us to have them and supply them and be ready to use them. For example, the supervisor or other folks that are trained. The other alternative that I heard, at least originally from Pam, was no, we won't do what I first said, but we will if somebody has a problem and uses their own personal prescription EpiPen, we will reimburse them for job-related use. So I'm hearing two different scenarios, if you
Well,
want.
you're hearing questions for the attorney, Hal.
Oh, okay. Is that what you're really saying? Okay.
Matt is saying Matt is saying, let's take it to the attorney and see what the attorney says about providing them training, the whole bit. And I'm saying, let's also ask about the minimal scenario of what if can the town reimburse? Is there a liability on that? Because it is an on-the-job hazard. So that would be a legal question, not a question for us at this moment. I think for us to decide is after the attorney.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I think that's a good point. Okay, so what's the board want to do? The board want to spend the money or not? John, you're thinking what, a couple $100 or?
I wouldn't think it would be too much more than that. It could be a couple hours, but I wouldn't think it'd be more than that.
Okay.
Less than 500 probably.
Yeah. Okay. Is the board comfortable spending that money?
I'm not, no.
I
But
think we're
there's no motion
split.
on the table. Is there a motion on the table?
No.
Well, we could make it a motion. Matt, you want to make a motion to spend up to $500 on legal advice?
I'd like to move that we spend up to $500 on legal advice related to the purchase and storage of EpiPens at the transfer station.
Okay, do we have a second?
I assume that's purchase, storage, and use.
Correct.
Yeah, can we, I would second if we could amend to include the question of reimbursement for
Okay,
employee,
Yep.
for employee use.
okay, good.
Amendment.
That's probably a workers' comp question to Primex, but I can ask the attorney too.
That would be great. If you could cut the attorney's time by asking Primex, that would be excellent.
Okay.
Okay, and recognize, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions on what the motion is? It's to expend up to $500 on legal questions related to the EpiPen use. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Matt, how do you
Yep.
vote?
Yes.
Okay. Pam?
Yes.
Beth?
No.
Tim?
No.
Now I'm going to vote yes. I would at least like to hear what the attorney says. As I said, no, enough said. I'd like to hear what the attorney says. Okay. I think I'd like to take a 5-minute break. I think we can get through the new business relatively quickly, and then we'll go into non-public at 8:30. So let's take a 3-minute break if we could, please. Okay, we need,
We lost Beth completely off the screen.
yeah, you're right. I hope that she's able to get back on. Let me just text Susan.
She should be able to click the link.
I don't see her trying to get back.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's not in the waiting room.
No,
Oh.
I mean, you can still continue, but oh, there she
There
is.
she is.
Okay, great.
Where was she?
And
How'd
Pam,
you get in without the waiting room?
Pam,
That's
I see you, but I see your square, but I don't see your picture. Are you with us?
I am with you. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Mr.
Great.
Chairman, can I just,
I'm in the dark.
Okay.
No, literally.
Okay, I'm going to move on to new business.
Mr. Chairman, can I just bring up a point about that last topic we had about the EpiPen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you, John asked the lawyer at Primex, who is gonna hold the prescription? Because that's gonna be written out to a person, prescription. So who's gonna carry their name on that piece of paper with the prescription?
Okay, good question. Thank you. And, I'd say this, without going nuts on it, if you think of other things like that, any board member thinks of something like that, let's pass it on to John, and he will use his discretion as to whether or not that gets included in terms of what's sent to the lawyer. I don't think we need to, edit every question that goes to him. John has good judgment, and we'll expect him to exercise it. Okay, I'm going to move on to the select board / school board joint meeting topics. We alluded to a couple of them already. The one is consideration of the school venue for future voting beyond November 2nd. Another one was consideration of asking them about using the school facilities for other things. For example, the larger budget committee meetings, perhaps the deliberative session for the town. We already hold the school's deliberative session there. And I guess what I'd like to do, we have those two topics for consideration. I'd like to see if there's other topics that other board members would like to have us consider for a joint meeting. And then I'd also like to pose to the board whether we really want to have a joint meeting, or as we did on the last request, which was for voting venue, we appointed or asked Matt to go on our behalf. So we wouldn't necessarily have to have a joint board to board meeting. The other option would be to just have a designate or delegate go on our behalf. So Beth, I'll open it up with you.
Well, we used to have a board meeting with the school board every year. The two boards got together. So, I mean, it would be good to continue on doing that.
Okay, so you think a board to board meeting is the way to go?
Mhm.
Okay, so then we should also then, do you remember approximately when in the year that was, Beth?
We did them twice my first year, and then I think it was in the summertime.
I'm just thinking with budgeting season coming up, should we try to squeeze it in, or?
I think they're just as busy as we are right now.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good point. I guess while you were speaking, one other thought did come up. John mentioned something about COVID-19 funding, And if we weren't going to use all the money, maybe we could discuss with the school that, they somehow use the money just so we make sure we use it all up. That may be a moot point given what John just said, but nonetheless, we want to take advantage of things if we can. If the money's going to be spent either way, it's sort of like taking out of one pocket and putting it into the other. But in the case of where we're getting grants and we might not get the money, well, then that's a different story. Matt, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, even just to basically let them know, like, hey, we found out that we could shift some of these funds into the school district after we had already spent, I don't know, what, 90%. So basically apologize for being so efficient in the use of those funds, because at this point it would have been nice to be able to allay some of their costs related to COVID. But you're right, it is sort of moving money from one bucket to another.
Yeah, but I think it's important that we use up all the money if we can. So, but yes, I think either way, it's good to discuss it with them and just keep the door open for future cooperation on that stuff like that. Other topics that folks might have thought of. Anything else that they might have thought of? Okay. I'm not hearing anything. So what's the board's pleasure in terms of timing for this? Do we want to have a meeting with them shortly during our budgeting season, or do you want to wait till at least November when our formal presentations are over? Any thoughts on that?
I'd rather get through the budget first.
Okay, so then at least
January or something.
Yeah, there's generally a lull in the action right after the new year. That might make more sense. Pam, how do you feel?
Might we approach them like via Matt and just get their opinion? Do they want to meet with us?
Hey, come on. What do you think? Of course they're not. You're right.
They might be of a mind of, no, we can resolve this request now and we will meet after January. So,
I think that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Courtesy to ask them, what do you want to do?
We shouldn't assume that they're anxious to meet with us. You're right.
Well, it's COVID and, all of that. I believe they are meeting in person.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they might be okay with that, but they might also feel like they've got to, honestly, the schools have a lot on their hands right now.
Yeah.
And they might be like, really just,
Yeah. Good point. Tim, how do you feel?
Either way, I think, yes, like Matt said, get through the budget and see what they say and shoot them like a letter or whatever and saying, hey, you guys really need us right now. Or can you put it off a little bit? So either way works.
Okay, so I think those are all good suggestions. Matt, would you be willing to at least discuss with the chair directly, or if the chair suggests you attending a board meeting, would you be willing to do that on our behalf?
Happy to. I'm actually, I have a visit with him penciled in over the weekend to make some cider. So.
Well, there you go. So you can at least get some sense as to how how Brian wants to play it. And I think our board is flexible. So feel them out and see what they think is appropriate. And then we can have this discussion. And you might ask them about joint topics also, just to see what.
Just get the details worked out before you get into the hard making cider.
Well, that takes months, so we're good.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
He didn't say they weren't doing it.
I'm planning on it.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a side topic to me. So, okay, very good. Thank you. John, do you want to talk about, at this point, talk about town hall resources and stuff? Are you ready for that, or do you want to hold off on that? Okay.
I want to get into non-public.
Okay. Then let's review the CIP. We've already sent it out. just so people are aware, the CIP is actually developed by the planning board and then approved by the planning board and it's for the board's information. So when we're deliberating on our budget, one of the things that we would do is we could look to see what is in the CIP plan. Mr. Strobel is the one that has primarily done the work on this, and I'd like to thank him for all the effort. He does not try to judge the projects or try to do anything to influence our decision. He pretty much presents them as the different departments present them to us. And then he tries to make some suggestions as to how the funding and how the timing of the projects might help us level out our overall spending. So if there's questions on this, we could bring them up at this point, or we can just ask all the board members to review it. And especially as, for example, when the fire department comes up, let's make sure we look at the CIP for what things they have on their schedule for 2021. And make sure then if it's not in the budget, then we think about maybe doing something on a warrant article. Does anybody have any questions or points they want to make on the CIP, or are people pretty comfortable with what they saw so far?
It's, well, a lot of things lined out for 2020. Very colorful.
Yes, I like that Bob does it in color. Now, what was
No, it's black and white. I would have preferred black colored copy.
Oh, Dave, I'm looking at it online. And
Yeah, you got.
so like on the library, the HVAC, these are things that were or have been allocated. Front door generator, things like that.
Yeah, so like, yeah, some of those things we handled already.
Yeah, replace radio. Yeah. So the school.
So we'll look at it.
What I'm going to suggest,
Put our notes down.
unless you have questions about how the CIP was created, which we could defer
Yeah,
back to Bob Strobel on that, I'm just going to ask that we keep this in mind as we're going through each individual department's budget. Keep this handy and have it available to ask questions about it and how it fits in with their budget.
All right, I will flag that. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions related to the CIP? Okay, if not, then let's move on to disposal of obsolete equipment. John, this one's yours.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that at this time.
Okay, so we're not going to do any disposing tonight. Okay, fine. Then at this point, I'm looking for a motion to go into non-public. It would be under A. Yep. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Actually, it could be B, A and B.
Which
I was
one's
just going to say, yeah, probably.
reputation?
C,
Personnel. A is personnel/discipline. B is hiring.
Okay, A, yep. I have a couple of things that brought up to my attention if I could.
Okay.
A
So
and B.
A and B in this
So
case.
moved.
Second,
Second,
Who made the motion, Tim?
discussion.
Beth.
I did.
Oh, Beth. And who seconded?
I did, Matt.
Okay.
Are you coming back?
You can leave and I'll
How do you
vote
vote?
at the end of the meeting like I did last time for you, Susan. It
Okay.
should be just
Well, I mean,
announcement and
conservation.
adjournment.
I've got conservation going on at the same time, so it doesn't.
Does,
Oh, okay. Then
Well-
if you give Matt the
Okay.
hosting, go into the chat into a,
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me stop everything.
So,
We need to vote still, Susan.
Oh,
Stop it yet.
so can we let Paul go too, or do we need Paul still?
yes, Paul can go too. I told him he didn't have to stay for non-public.
Okay.
so we need to vote to go into non-public before we shut off, right, Matt? You know what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
yep.
Yep. So it's Pam. How do you vote?
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Hal is yes. Okay, so who's gonna